us to understand the goal of this discussion, the goal of our conversation. First of all, I want us to understand the state of our nation. It's unfortunate that many of us are still living in this country, even those who are in diaspora are indifferent about the condition of our nation. A lot of us are indifferent about the things happening around us. And to a large extent, the state of Nigeria affects every Nigerian, whether you are living, inhabiting within the shores of this country or you are in diaspora. Then we are going to consider to really look at the antecedents. We want to know what exactly in the past has been achieved and done by youth, why we need to take precedence from the antecedents. Then I will highlight few things that some youths are doing that we must necessarily recognize, acknowledge, and from there take cues from. Then I'm hoping that our conversation and discussion today will be able to imbibe in us certain level of optimism in order for us to begin to consider new deals for us to be able to push for a new Nigeria. And of course, we are going to look at what are the new things that we must begin to do. What are the new political postures that we, regardless of your religious disposition, need to begin to do other than just to be praying. So these are few things that I want us to critically look at today. So on the state of Nigeria, it is no news that the education sector is in comatose. For as many of us who came out of school in the past few years, we knew what we went through in order for us to be able to badge the different degrees that we acquired. We knew the state of the learning. We knew the things that we went through in the four walls of our universities. For those that went to polytechnics, for those that went to university to acquire degrees, we all knew what we went through. Is in terms of the inadequacy of the infrastructures, or even the poor capacity building of the lecturers that taught us. I remember vividly because this memory keeps coming to me each time I think about the experiences I had while I was on campus. About one of my lecturer who studied in University of Chicago, in the United States, each time he comes to class, always talk to us about his experience in Chicago and how things are totally different from the experiences in Nigeria. By the way, I am an alumnus of Obafemi Awolowo University, as many people do call Great Ife. So it was something that really got a lot of us on campus then bothered. Sorry, a lot of us in my department bothered because we were looking forward to having the same experience, similar experience, in school as he used to, pretend to us about his experience while he was in Chicago. But that was not the case. Many of us who were supposed to study for 4 years ended up spending 4 plus X years, not because we were indolent, not because we failed, but because of the incessant strike that we all experienced. By the way, I had to stay at home for a whole year because when I did my jump that was supposed to have gained me admission into Ife, I got the admission. I waited for a whole year for ASU to go, to return back to school before we all resumed to school. And a similar incident is what is happening at the moment. Imagine people that wrote JAMB and got admission last year. All of them are still at home now, waiting for when ASU will call a strike. And during the EndSARS protest, I said something when I shot a video. I said, looking at the scenario of what was happening, there is no hope for school returning back to school this year. And exactly that is what is playing now. So it's a major situation. It's a critical, heart-aching issue that we must talk about. The other one is about health sector. I wouldn't know how many of us have visited any of the health facilities around us in our community or around the nation recently. You will but cry and think about how we got to this state. I describe the sector as dead. And when they declare something as dead, health sector, or let me say health facilities are supposed to be, the infrastructures that should ensure people are rescued from death. But if what's supposed to rescue people from dying is dead, do you think people really have hope? So it is a critical issue. The people who are entrusted with our resources, who are entrusted with opportunity to make policies to improve on the condition of these facilities, are people who engage in what I call medical tourism to UAE, UK, EU, India, USA, and other developed economies where they have things working for them and where they put in all these health facilities. So it is a major issue that we must talk about. And you can imagine what is happening to people who are living in the rural environment, who doesn't even have opportunity to be disposed to finances or to be disposed to things that will help them access this facility wherever they are in the whole in the entire world. So it's a critical issue. Then the other thing is about bad governance. In fact, one of the things that is propelling us to begin to discuss about the state of our nation is because we have always experienced bad governance. Each time we had an electioneering process, we are always caught in between a dilemma, having no choice but to choose between two sets of evils. Time will not permit me to begin to cite instances in the past elections that we've all experienced, where we were analyzed to choose between two bad choices, and a lot of people ended up becoming indifferent because they were like, there couldn't have been any choice among these two people. Of course, I'm talking about the major parties who usually feed us with candidates. So these are being the recurring decimal for us when it comes to the issue of national leadership, when it comes to the issue of our democracy. We have never been so lucky for us to have people who have clues and who have what it takes to deliver the expected nation that we are all dreaming of. So what we have always been getting over the years are just mere lucky opportunists. People who are clueless, people who turn out to become tyrants, people who turn out to become mere opportunists. I stand to be corrected. I want to quote one of our past presidents who said that he got to become the president through providence. That is not to gainsay anything. Truthfully, it must have, he might have become the president through providence. But the truth of the matter is, what exactly has it got to deliver? What exactly has it got to deliver? Just like I always tell people that your whatever it is that you've acquired as a matter of your certificate, your level of knowledge and all that can only best get you a job, but cannot sustain you on your job. You need more than your certificate for you to be able to deliver whatever it is that you've been described to do for being employed. So the same thing applies to leadership. Whatever it is that you have as a credential, maybe you served as senator, you served as House of Rep member, because these are some of the things that even some of these major political parties usually look at for them to be able to feed in candidates. And of course, the favoritism of godfatherism is there too. So regardless of whatever brings you into power, you need to look at, in order for you to be able to deliver, you need to look at what is it that you have for you to deliver beyond the so-called agendas that we normally put together. You hear 7-point agenda, 10-point agenda, 3-point agenda, which have now become a cliche. Beyond that, we need to understand what exactly does this person have to deliver, so that we're able to now begin to talk about how to move out of this issue of bad governance. Again, we have underperforming economy. Well, when my bio was read, you could see that I'm not a professional in economics. So I wouldn't want to beat about the bush to be able to do economic analysis of what is happening in Nigeria. But the simple thing I can talk about concerning Nigeria economy, why it is underperforming, is that an average Nigerian goes to sleep every day without eating 3 square meals. And it has been said from statistics by World Bank that the average Nigerian cannot boast of $2 per day. Let's look at what economy is today. How much is a dollar, conversion of a dollar to Naira? About 385 or 390 in the banks, and also in the parallel market, you have it dwindling between 420, 450, depending on the good days. So imagine when you convert that to $2, you are talking about less than 1,000 Naira. You have more Nigerians. In fact, about 60% of Nigerians who cannot boast of spending 1,000 Naira on feeding every day, except they go by either being dubious or taking advantage of other people who are vulnerable. That's why you see an average danfo driver. By the time you board his bus to fly between a location to the other, he wants to take advantage of you and ensure that you don't get your change back. Why? Because he's hungry and he wants to feed his stomach. So these are critical issues. We have increasing rate of unemployment. It is so sad that the people who are currently in university now, who doesn't even have a hope of returning back to school this year, I'm talking about people who are in public and private universities, who doesn't have hope of returning back to school. They say by the time they eventually return back next year and they come out of school, there is no hope for them getting job. It is so sad. Or we want to begin to imagine the high cost of services and consumable goods. We all know at the beginning of this year, before the outbreak of the pandemic, and of course the EndSARS protests that came afterwards, how much we bought for, how much crude oil was selling. Now we know what it is. And Nigeria economy is so political that everything depends on the cost of crude oil in the global market. And that is why once the cost of fuel, just like as they're proposing now that, or maybe it has even been confirmed that the fuel price is going to increase from 165 that they're selling it now to about 170 naira. And we all know what that portends to every aspect of our consumable goods. That means that everything will automatically increase, even including the cost of transportation. So these things have a long-term effect. And we must talk about it. We can't continue to keep silence over these things. Also, we look at the way our infrastructures are depreciating every day. For as many of us who travel on road, as many of us who ply different parts of the country, in fact, recently I made up my mind that I'm not going to travel by road, except it is extremely important because it is too a high risk for people to be taking. I'm not neglecting the fact that some people are necessarily going to be traveling on roads because there's no other means of transportation for them. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at the statistics of how many people are dying every day flying through the deplorable roads in Nigeria, it is so alarming and so disgusting. These are future of the country. These are people who have so much to do in increasing and adding value to the country, but yet they need their Waterloo by dying on the road simply because they need to move from one location to the other through bad road networks. It is imperative that for any economy to grow, there must be good and improving, not just ordinary good, improving infrastructures, because the infrastructure that was established 10 years ago, a lot of them are currently obsolete. And the infrastructures that are being established today, in the next 10, 15 years, they may become obsolete because that is what the whole world is all about. The world keeps evolving. So if we don't have an improving system that secures, growing infrastructures for us, then we will continue to wallow in these, quagmire as we have always been saying as a nation. So we need to really consider a lot of these issues. The agriculture sector is also in comatose. We all knew how buoyant the agriculture sector was during Obasanjo's regime, even during Jonathan's regime, of which the Minister of Agriculture even got a serious bounce, having left that office, became the president of African Development Bank because of his track record and because of development he brought about in the agricultural sector. Afterwards, we've seen how this same sector had gone down the drain. Needless to mention about what is happening in the oil sector. The mining sector has not even been exploited. Currently, Nigeria GDP is being, is being underutilized because the mining sector, as a major sector that's supposed to be giving us strong GDP, is only producing 0.3% of our total GDP currently as a nation. This is unthinkable. This is so disgusting, and something has to change. A new narration has to begin to be depicted within the sector. About tourism is even no-go area, despite all the investments of youth, despite all the creativity and innovations that youth are forcefully, relentlessly bringing into this sector. There have been a lot of frustration that many of us have been facing. I have quite a lot of friends who are doing fantastically well in arts and in the creative industry, but there is no boost, there is no opportunity, there is no platform for them to push and to add their quota to ensuring that this sector is being transformed. Energy, in fact, shortly before we started this event, one of my friends that ought to join us in this conversation, sent the message to me and told me for the past 2 weeks they've not had light. Why? Simply because a transformer that supplied the entire area, was installed many years ago, and within the past 5 years, there had been, increase in development within the area. And we know what the people who are handling the distribution of electricity in Nigeria are actually disposing themselves to in this business. So they don't have life for the past 2 weeks and nobody's saying anything. Nobody's attending to their needs. I'm sure the IKDC is waiting for them to come together. Maybe by the time they feel the strong pains, they will all come together and buy the transformer and install and all that. That is exactly what this country has done to. This is the state of our nation. Whatever you look around within your environment that is working, they are the things that you've been able to provide for yourself. For how long are we going to continue to have these kind of experiences? And imagine that our children that we are going to raise, the next generation coming afterwards, are going to, continue to wallow in this kind of despicable situation. So it is something that is so annoying. And I sat down and I began to imagine that there is this Sister Bolade somewhere located within this country who is also feeling the pains that I'm feeling. There is this Chukuma somewhere who is feeling this same pains. There's this Isa in the north who is thinking that my father told me about all these troubles, and yet here am I, I'm still talking about it. I remember growing up, we used to shout, up NEPA. Oh, NEPA have taken light. Before long, you look around you and you look at young chaps, people in their 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, who in this current dispensation, there is nothing like NEPA, but you wonder where they even got to hear the inclination about NEPA. And once they bring light, they also share, oh, up NEPA, they brought light. Is this the kind of narration that we want to, continue to, be propagated within the country? Lo and behold, what we need to begin to do is to shift our focus from what is not working from this country and look from within, because it has to come from within us, and look from within and begin to see optimism, begin to be hopeful, because hope is all about, focusing on what is imaginable, not things that you can see with your eyes. And that's why hope in itself comes from an abstraction. So you wouldn't put your hope in things that you can actually see. So you have to begin to sit down as a young guy, as a young woman, to begin to imagine what exactly do you want the future to hold for you, for your children, for your community, for your society, and for our nation, Nigeria at large. And that's when we can now begin to tell ourselves that we believe Nigeria can work. I believe personally in you that you are hearing me, that we're having this conversation together today, that things can again work for us. And then we can now begin to enjoy the blessings of this nation. So I will now begin to, highlight few things for us to, look critically into. What are the antecedents? We need to look into the past achievements of Nigerian youth, because when I'm done with this, you realize that if we are canvassing that youth should be actively involved in the governance of this nation, should be actively involved in contributing to the development of this nation, we are not missing words. It's because there have been antecedents right from inception. These have been the cliche, these have been the norm. And I'll start by talking about the Nigerian youth movement. For as many of us who are, students of government, we realize that the NYM was set up during the colonial regime in 1934. And you have people like Ernest Okoli, Samuel Akisoya, Dr. Van, and later on in Nnamdi Azikiwe, H.O. Davies, Obafemi Awolowo, and Samuel Akintola later joined this youth movement. And this was the exact youth movement who ensured that we had what we call Nigerian independence today. The conversation about Nigeria being freed, getting freedom, being liberated from colonialism came from this youth movement. And in 1934, they were able to sponsor people who won electoral positions in the Legislative Council of the British colonial masters then. So you can imagine that youth had always been the vanguard of transformation, and they had always be at the forefront of ensuring that things are working in our nation, even before our nation had, was birthed. So now that we have a nation and it seems as if things are not working, why don't we look into the past and begin to take cue from there? The same movements ensure that they unify the different ethnic groups that were highlighted and known at that time, and they promoted national consciousness. Let me quickly go to the NYSC. As many of us who are graduates, we definitely have gone through this. I don't need to begin to overflog the impact of NYSC in Nigeria. Many of us who served in the North, we knew that we were the hope of the people that were living in the North, because these are people who were not properly educated, they were not exposed to education system as such, but having served in those locations, we're able to, consciously and selflessly. For instance, how much were you paid for you to be able to teach all those students that you taught? How much were you paid for you to go into rural areas, for you to do community services? How much were you paid for you to mobilize in order for you to ensure that you establish and fulfill the SDG goals that have now been transformed, MDG goals that have now been transformed into SDG goals? So the impact of youth at that level cannot be thrown under the carpet. And the same thing can be repeated. Yes, we've gone through NYSC. Why don't we start new initiatives that can replicate the vision and the mission of NYSC? And then we begin to do things, which are part of what we're going to be talking about and looking at things that we can do. And in terms of leadership and policies advocacy, we've had SUG governments, the student union government in different universities at different, locations in the country, who had strongly, at least the one, if I'm not going to remember anyone, I could remember vividly about the 1992-1993 elections, because the revolution of ensuring that a proper democratic regime was established, was strongly supported by the student union government. When Abiola won the election through that Hope 93 vision, they all stood to, because I knew then how they came to our school then to mobilize all of us, even despite that we're very young. They moved all of us in our primary school and ensured that we all came outside to join the movement, to lend our own voices to why are all these things not happening? Where are all the SDGs? Well, in fact, you can imagine the way the system has collapsed this advocacy group, because when the students are not in school, how will the SDG function? So I see it as a strong systemic what's it called now, outlook, in order for youth not to emerge and not to do what they need to do. So we need to begin to forcefully, relentlessly take a position. The same thing, okay, sorry, I've talked about the NYSC. Let me quickly go into the other aspect of what youth are doing at the moment. I'm sure some of us might have heard about YAGA, that's the Youth Initiative for Advocacy Group, Growth and Advancement, founded and co-founded by Samson Itodo and Cynthia Mbamalu. We can always check on their website to see some of the things that they are doing. One of their recent achievements is ensuring the passing of Not Too Young to Run Bill, which was initiated by them and was sponsored by Tony Nwulu, the former House of Rep, and Abdulaziz Nyako in the North, a former senator. These are people who ensured that youth, who ensure that Not Too Young to Run Bill. And through this bill, after the bill was passed into law, through this bill, we've had a number of youths who are taking positions in both elective and appointed positions across the country. Of course, not at a good sizable number, but we have pockets of such people who are currently in NAS and also in the different states of assemblies where they are serving. So we need more of this kind of advocacy. We need more of this kind of drastic move, or what I call advanced movements, in order for us to be able to push some of these ideas that you and I might be nursing within the walls of our homes into the streets, into their community, and into every part of this country, in order for us to be able to birth what we really call a new Nigeria. Then I'm sure some of us in Lagos might have heard about the Slum to School initiative. There's this young guy called Otodom. As many of us who have been following the trends of the activities, you discover that during the lockdown, when all schools were closed, and of course they are still closed, he single-handedly initiated what he called Slum to School Innovation Hub. And he started a virtual learning, which was aimed to support 10,000 underdeserved children in virtual and cluster programs. What does it mean by this? We want to ensure that students who are in Makoko, students who are in Ojuelegba, who are under the bridge, who had no fortune, who had no hope, who had no even opportunity to go to the four walls of schools, people who are in Ibejuleki, lost in the bush, these are the people it tends to be underdeserved. It wants to bring them together, connect them to internet, empower them to gadgets with equipment, with tools that will bring them online in order for them to be taught by volunteers. And so far, he had been able to accomplish this vision with about 3,500 people. So you can imagine that people are doing things, youth are doing things that even the government is not celebrating. The government is not projecting. We as youth need to begin to talk to ourselves and project it in order for us to even do more. He also has this initiative about feeding, which he went into partnership with Eat and Go. where they want to give hope to every child within this same people group, or children tribe, that as you can call them, who are called underdeserved. So we need to begin to look at this. Let me just shock us with these statistics. Currently, Nigerian population is put at 209 million. 209 million, and it keeps growing. As at last year, as at 2016 election, we had the population growth, put at 21%. Currently, the population growth is exploding. And if something is not done critically, we are even talking about inadequacies of infrastructures. We are talking about poor, infrastructures in the different, what's it called, sectors. If something is not done in the next 5 years, some of us might not even be holding the positions in which we think we are holding, because the pressure on us will be too much, and we need to begin to have a conversation. So you can look at these statistics of how many of them are within the age of under 15, how many of them are between the age of 15 and 64, how many of them are even old. So you see that the old people, who are majorly minority in this country, are the ones that are controlling our destiny. And these are people that they are even at the quarter two of their life. They can die anytime, as many of them had actually died this year, as we could see. Out of the population of people who had died this year, we have about 80% of them within the age bracket of above 64 years. So it is important that we need to begin to take our future into our hands. As at 2019, March, it was given through Nigerian Bureau of Statistics that 49% people were, out of the total population of Nigeria, about 209.9 million, just 49, almost half of the population are the people who had registered voters. Of course, within the voting, we should begin to emphasize that if at all we need to get this conversation right, if at all we need to move Nigeria forward, we had to move that number, that statistics, up to 71% in the list. That means that we must begin to think about how do we ensure that 150 million people vote, of course, youth. Then we can talk about achieving good success.